when I've had this conversation with employers where they've had candidates who they really like, and we can't hold on to that candidate because they want to disappear after 18 months because they're just so proactive and innovative and driving stuff like that. And I said, okay, that's fine. So what is it that you need to get them to learn? What is it that they need to know so that they can actually be innovative and proactive in the next step in the organization? They go, okay, well, they need to know these 5 things. I said, okay, great. So rather than having a 2-year internship, focus your internship about skill acquisition or knowledge acquisition. Once you actually achieved these certain, waypoints from the knowledge point of view, then they're actually ready to move on. It might not be 2 years, it might be 6 months.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Ways to Wealth. Today I'm joined by Andy. Andy, why don't you give us the too long didn't read about kind of who you are and what got you to this moment?
Okay. Well, thank you for having me on here today. My name is Andy Foy. I run a company called Predictive Performance. We help companies or successful companies optimize their people management practices through data and science rather than guesswork and intuition.
Okay.
And by using data and science, it enables people to improve communication, improve performance of teams, get the right people on the bus, right people in roles and things like that, make organizations more effective.
Oh, nice. Awesome. Good summary.
Yeah.
So have you always been in this space of trying to, what started the journey?
Yeah. So, started a career in HR 30 odd years ago.
Right.
And, came across things like psychometric assessments and things like that and had used them in the past. And then always found them to be a bit okay.
Okay.
And then when I went to the United Kingdom and worked over there, I was introduced to a profiling tool called the Predictive Index.
Yeah.
And it was the first time someone gave a read back on my profile and nailed me.
Right.
And I was like, okay, got my attention. But where it really became evident and it proved its worth was in job profiling.
Right.
So you can use the tools, you can get an understanding of an individual, but you can also get an understanding of a role.
Right.
So you can profile a role and you can say, okay, these are the behaviors that I need in that role. And it's skills are one thing, but it's actually what are the behaviors of the individual who's going to fulfill that role. That's actually the critical elements of success.
Yeah.
So take, for example, a truck driver. I can teach you how to drive a truck.
Yeah.
I can't teach you to be more patient.
Right.
I can't teach you to be more quality focused and make sure that you religiously do your checks on the truck day in and day out. That's something that you either will
do or won't do.
We do or won't do.
Yeah.
And those are often the critical elements to success. So when I was a recruitment manager for this company, we profiled roles. And what we found is that we then used the information from that profile in our recruitment advertisements and things like that. Suddenly the quality of the candidates improved massively.
Okay.
So we were turning on the right kind of people and turning off the people we didn't want. Right? Yep. And then using that information further through the recruitment process, you're able to get the right people on the roles, into the roles and into the stores and things like that. And what we found is that within a 6-month period, we've gone from over 350 vacancies to 0. We had gone from 20% churn down to low single figures. And we had our most successful Christmas ever.
Right.
So all that happened in a very brief period of time. And I underspent my recruitment budget by over £100,000. So it had massive financial returns in a very fast period of time. So you go, okay, so there's something in this.
Yeah, totally.
And so subsequently in other jobs and other roles, I used the same sort of methodology to have similar sorts of impacts and results. And probably about 6-7 years ago, that's when I decided to actually focus on this rather than working for a corporate. And so run my own consultancy now.
So 6 or 7 years ago, you started the consultancy?
Yeah, actually about 7 years.
And you always knew you wanted to go down that business ownership path, or that was just quite a random, not random, but yeah.
It was one of those things, I guess you can say an opportunity presented itself. I'd left a role and I was actually thought, I'd like to give working for myself a crack.
Right. Yep. Okay.
And here I am
Yeah. And then you made the plunge.
Yes. Yeah.
I guess you were. So would you say that naturally you're entrepreneurial?
I think I've learnt entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things. Certainly, my approach to a lot of things has changed.
Right.
I think you start looking more at, so for example, risk as opportunity.
Right.
And you start looking for opportunity. You start seeing opportunities in a lot of different things.
Right.
Perhaps you wouldn't otherwise have seen them before.
Totally. That's cool. So you kind of have this quite long corporate career. You learn a lot about this predictive indexing, and you implement it for employers and for clients, basically through that process.
Yes.
And then after a period of time, it must have been, how many years were you working with the kind of indexing and like implementing it before you actually went out on your own?
So I'd used it on and off on a period for about, I'd say about 15 years.
Okay.
And yeah, where I found it was, I had just used it in recruitment, but where I actually found it incredibly valuable is actually post-recruitment, when you've actually got people working in a teams. And then if I understand what are your innate behaviours and needs and the way you communicate, things like that, then I can have a much stronger relationship with you, understand why you do what you do at work and what are some of the things that you perhaps need at work. So some people need more detail.
Yeah.
Some people need more formality. So if I'm able to give that to them when delegating things to them,
right,
suddenly that provides a level of comfort and security, and their level of performance will increase.
Right. Yeah, makes sense. When I'm listening to you talk about it, and we just did a description because I did the thing.
Yeah.
Makes me think that you could utilize it to basically find the right client.
Potentially, yeah. So when you're looking for things, when you're looking for a client, or when you're going to work with a client, there'll be some clients that, for example, might be very risk averse. So the approach that you perhaps take working with them will be different to ones that have a higher appetite for risk.
Yeah.
So some companies want to put things in faster. Others require a lot longer burn.
Meeting people where they're at.
Absolutely. So some people, you may have to have those more in-depth conversations, go on a more proving journey with them rather than just hitting the return straight away.
Yeah, interesting. And then what are the misconceptions around what you do in the market and the pushback that you get that are kind of just fundamentally flawed?
So I think I guess the first one is some people just see it as a cost, or it's just another thing.
Yeah.
What it does is it enables you to be far more efficient in your, say, for example, your recruitment process.
Yeah.
If you are in a situation where you've got large numbers of CVs coming through, it enables you to find those people who are more naturally aligned to the role. Where you find people who perhaps there's a bit of variance, you can understand why that variance exists. So instead of just sending them on a course, you can go, okay, I know that Andy needs more, for example, communication skills, or how to leverage his communication skills better. What do does?
Yeah.
So that enables you to be more focused. So these tools, and then when you're actually working in teams of people, enables you to get those teams working together much more efficiently, a lot faster. And so you can run not only on an individual basis and use it for individual one-on-one coaching, you can use it for team coaching.
Yeah.
And understand why a team is working well, or perhaps why a team is struggling. Yeah. So you can see how a team collectively, what their strengths and drives are, perhaps what are also some of their potential weaknesses or challenges that they may have. So you may have a situation, and I have come across this on several occasions, where you've gone out and you've built a team or hired a team, and then when you profile a team, you find that I might have 8 people, but I've actually gone out and hired 8 people who are exactly the same.
Right.
Now, that may work if you've got let's say, for example, you're after customer service operators or something like that, a role that weighs a very consistency, right? Where consistency is important. But if you've got an executive team where you need neurodiversity, you need that diversity of thought.
Yeah.
If you've gone out and hired like me, or hired a cultural fit, whatever, you may find that you've actually got 5 people, 6 people who are all very, very similar.
Yeah.
So there'll be glaring holes where certain things don't happen. So it might be execution that the team might be weak on. So understanding that can be used, because then you can plug the gap with either a different person or secondment, or you work out that at certain stages, this is where I'm going to have to bring someone different in to help us out.
And is that usually the best place to get initial buy-in? Is at that top level when you engage?
The top level, or if it's a HR team or something that has the ability to make the decisions,
Right.
and that's great. Otherwise, it's an executive team or an executive leader. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. How long does the kind of engagement work? Is it continuous, or is it like there is a defined like outcome that the team are that the clients are looking for?
So it depends. I have a number of clients where they have continuous engagement.
Right.
So we put the tool into the organization. We help we train the people in the organization so they can use it, and then they become self-sufficient. So they don't have a need to draw on us unless they need help. Right. Or we can provide additional training, things like that. So then you've got a team that is naturally using the tools and using the information and using the insights to make better workplaces.
Yeah.
Where you sometimes have just like a shorter engagement is where you might have, say, a team session, the executive team or sales team or whatever it is needs to understand each other better, how they work together better.
Yep.
And looking for something. So that's when you have perhaps a more discreet engagement.
Yeah, right. That's cool. What's the typical size of like organization that kind of really sees the value quite immediately, and then which are the kind of sizes or types that kind of maybe are harder to sell, but they might need it more?
Okay, so you've got different needs. So you might have a team or an organization that's quite small. Let's say, for example, it's say 20 people. With that, you could use the tool and run a single one-off piece of engagement. We run a team discovery session. Everyone is in the room, right, and everyone understands how everyone else works, and so that's kind of a more one-off thing.
Yep.
So they'd get a big benefit out of it, and that benefit would be pretty fast and straight away. And then you can continue that with other kind of team learning events subsequently. Then you have other organizations which are bigger, which might go, okay, well, we perhaps going to just use it for recruitment first, or we're going to use it in recruitment and management development or talent development. So they will probably, when you're looking at a big organization, you tend to launch into the organization more discreetly. So you might choose an area of that organization, or we'll go, okay, we're going to use it in recruitment first, and then subsequently use it in management development and like that. So that tends to be a bit more of a slower journey.
Yeah.
But you'll have, you'll have big impacts. So I've got one client and they use it for all their recruitment, but where they got a really big bang for their buck straight away was hiring apprentices and graduates. So apprentices, they get inundated with hundreds of CVs. They would send out assessments to all of the people who've applied, and then they go, okay, we're able to whittle down to, say, a top 50 very fast, because we've got these top 50 people who are innately aligned to the role. And the proof is in the pudding for them. In the first 3 years that they used it, they hired 90 apprentices. They lost one.
Right.
So their return in terms of all that training and development time is paid back, right, manyfold.
Yeah, okay. Do you partner with other companies that kind of let people know about what you're doing?
Yeah, so we do have some companies that work with us and refer us and things like that, which is quite good. And then there are other companies like companies who run ATSs and HRS systems where we can integrate.
Yeah.
So you can be working, for example, in a Workday or whatever it is, and rather than go into a separate system, you just click a button and you can send out assessments or whatever it is within that system itself. So it just depends on where it is, but sometimes it's our referral through companies that we partner with, and others are the other tech firms. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And like, for the business for your business itself, like over the next 5 years, like what does success look like? Like what's the kind of ambition?
Well, the ambition is to help as many New Zealand companies as we can improve their recruitment practices or improve their teams and their effectiveness in the workplace. Big reason for that is we're actually going to be at the moment, it's employers have probably got a pick of choice of candidates,
Right.
but we've got a situation where we've got a rapidly aging population, and that's going to become more difficult to find people as that population changes. And then the situation that we've got here is being mirrored in pretty much every OECD country. So countries like Australia, UK, USA are going to be probably talent hunting more vigorously than they are even now. And so that brain drain that we currently are getting a wee bit of, that will accelerate.
Right.
So ensuring that you've got the right people on board is going to become critical.
Yes.
And also one of the other things you've got coming through now is we look to say, you want to try and hire the whole person.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the brain, the heart, and the briefcase, all the skills and things like that.
Yeah.
When you get a CV at the moment, basically you're scanning it to see, does this person's skills line up with what I think I need?
Yeah.
And then you do an interview to check, is this value character?
Yeah.
Makes sense. Does he say, well, do I think he does what he says he can do?
Can he deliver?
And then you take a punt and you hire him. Yeah. What we say is, okay, that gives you that briefcase bit, the skills, but you also need to know what are the critical competencies from a behavioural and a cognitive point of view.
Yeah.
And those two elements usually make up over 56% of on-job success, predicting on-job success. So if you understand those things, and then you get a bit of an understanding of, okay, what's this person's values? What are they passionate about? Why they want to come to work here? Then you have a much wholer, more holistic view of a person when you're bringing them on board and when you're doing those selections. It also takes some of the bias out of the equation, because you would have been in a situation perhaps where you're hiring people we've heard it come through where, I'm not sure this person's going to be the right cultural fit.
Yep.
What's that based on? It's based on gut feel. What we're saying is, don't hire for gut feel.
Yeah, for sure.
Look at what some of the data are actually telling you, because if you can see that, okay, here's a job profile, here's the individual, I can see where this person's going to align and perhaps where this person's not going to align. I can focus some on my questioning around that, and it gives you a much more objective understanding of the variance, but also, can I bridge that variance?
And you're also reducing the volatility. Well, the variance is the volatility.
Yeah.
So you're basically maybe can have a better onboarding process.
Correct.
You're going to be faster in productivity. And like you said, you can get less churn through either them or you deciding it's not the right fit.
Yeah, so you can, the onboarding is a fantastic example, because you can use the information, the system will create a cheat sheet for a manager.
Right.
So what is it that Charlie needs in the workplace? What can I do to actually support him be successful? And it's just, some of those things can be quite short, but it just means that the way I manage you, I manage you the way you need to manage, not the way I think you need to manage.
Yeah. And what do you think about organizations making role, like not having positions, but creating positions for people?
So hiring a person and then crafting a role around the person, I think that's a fantastic idea, because then you ideally kind of play to someone's strengths. There's certain things that you need doing, and certain things that need to be executed. So understanding what those are and then trying to align a person to what those are, or playing to someone's strengths, then you know that, okay, so for example, Andy's not so flash with the detail. Does it mean that I can't do detail? Well, no, I can, but it's just going to take more energy. It's going to burn my battery faster.
Yeah.
So don't turn Andy into an accountant.
Yeah.
It's your a lesson learned for today. So there's certain things I'm going to do quite well at, and there are other things that are perhaps not a strength.
And this must be more common in the leadership team, where you're often forced into parts of the business or roles and jobs that you don't really, or you wouldn't otherwise do unless you were the business owner or one of the leaders.
Possibly. So sometimes you'll be in that situation where you just have to take something on and suck it up. Understanding that. So for example, when I do detail work, ideally for me, it's first thing in the morning, right, or late at night.
Yeah.
I know that those are 2 points of my day where that's where I'm highly energized.
Yeah.
And so I now schedule detail work at those two spots.
Yes.
But I can't do it for long periods of time.
Yep.
So understanding that, and that also helps you manage your own, understanding yourself will help you manage your own mental health. So when I'm starting to feel frustrated or down or depressed or whatever it is, I can go, why am I feeling like this?
Right.
Understand what some of my drives are and go, okay, one of those drives is actually to be in and around people. I get energized from being around people. So just actually even going and hanging out with people, picking up the phone, having a chat to someone, those things can actually build up your energy, change your kind of fill your battery up a bit.
Yeah.
And then help you plug on.
It's like, I don't know, it's, love languages are kind of common for that. And then, what is it? Whether you're an introvert or an extrovert as well. That's,
So that's of it. Yeah. So for example, my oldest daughter's a bit introverted. So there's no point in her sitting down to try and do work when she comes home from school. The first thing she does when she comes home from school, she goes into bed. She lies down, and she'll spend half an hour just lying on her bed. And that's because she's been in and around people all day, and she's actually mentally worn out.
right.
So she actually needs to recharge by herself so that she can kind of get on, do homework and things like that.
Yeah, it must be quite a cheat sheet when you're parenting and you have a good sense of or training around.
It was very interesting when I did it with my daughter, because some of the assumptions I made just because of the behaviours I saw,
right.
you think, oh, that's maybe she's
some things, because you know it, so you'll try and guess. I'm guessing you get a bit of a kick out of also having a relationship with someone and trying to guess their score before they do it.
Yeah, I try not to do that. And because I've been called out a few times. But there must be some malleable. Sometimes you see people doing things, and you sometimes the behaviours are so overt that you just go, okay, that person is I've got a high level of assertiveness in that profile. And so that enables you to actually manage that person or engage in a conversation very well.
Yeah.
So, for example, my daughter, it was interesting. You go, oh, okay, she's actually, one thing was, she's actually more introverted than I thought. Right. The other thing I found was understanding what's going on in her current school environment. So at that point in time, she was just trying to get through the day. She was, as I said, it looks from your profile, you just sit in the class and just like, tell me what you want me to know and I'll do it. And she just looked at me and she goes, yeah, that's why I go to school. And so she wasn't actually actively learning.
Right.
She was just like, what do I need to do to pass the test?
Right.
And it's like, well, that's not probably a great thing for your education.
Yeah, long term.
Long term. And she's, in a situation now where she's changed subjects and she's flourishing. So
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's nice.
So the same thing can happen at work as well. You think back perhaps to your beginning of your career, you wanted to come out of, you've got so many grads who'll come out and they want to be a doctor or they want to be an accountant or a lawyer, whatever it is. They hit, 3 years in working for a law firm or accounting firm and they go, this ain't my future.
Right.
And then they're out of there.
Do you think if they did the assessment beforehand, you'd basically miss a lot of kind of poor paths?
I think what you do, you certainly would be able to be in a situation where you're going, okay, there's certain people who are perhaps best aligned for this type of role in your organization, or if they're coming through, helping them understand that, okay, this is where we'll, when I've had this conversation with employers, where they've had candidates who they really like, and they go, we can't hold on to that candidate because they want to disappear after 18 months because they're just so proactive and innovative and driving and stuff like that. I said, okay, that's fine. So what is it that you need to get them to learn? What is it that they need to know so that they can actually be innovative and proactive in the next step in the organization? They go, okay, well, they need to know these 5 things. I said, okay, great. So rather than having a 2-year internship, focus your internship about skill acquisition or knowledge acquisition.
Yeah.
And once you actually achieved these certain, I guess, waypoints from the knowledge point of view, then they're actually ready to move on. It might not be 2 years, it might be 6 months.
Right.
It might be a year.
And I guess it depends individual to individual as well.
Precisely. And then you have that ability to kind of flex. And some people might take longer, some people might take less time.
Yeah.
But it means that because you're working on those sorts of things, you're actually able to provide a level of customization.
Yes.
That traditionally you wouldn't be able to have.
Right.
And that way you actually can able to continue to provide that level of engagement and job satisfaction and things like that. It's not a case of having to move out in order to move up or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other cool thing is that you can look at the profiles and you can go, okay, well, I've actually got Jane, she's working over in purchasing at the moment. We've actually got a role in finance that actually aligns to her profile quite well.
Right.
And then tap her on the shoulder and say, do you want to actually come across to this kind of environment, or do you want to come across to marketing, whatever it is? So you actually create internal flexibility, which perhaps you wouldn't otherwise have.
Yeah. What do you say now about, obviously you're in the space of building and supporting and helping teams thrive.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, and you kind of acutely aware of the human side, how are you kind of preparing your kids or your daughter, if you must have one, to enter a workforce that is rapidly changing?
I think the 2 things I'm trying to encourage my daughters to do is, one is that continuous learning, because and learn from a variety of sources. So when, for example, we get in the car, often they'll hear I'm listening to podcasts or I'm listening to books or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And they'll ask about them. It's providing them with information about other things, so that, for example, it could be I've provided my daughter with a couple of investment books. Like Girls That Invest, just so that they can understand that there's something different. So there's that thirst to continuously learn, because things are going to change and change so much. It's that ability to adapt.
Yes.
That's going to be quite critical. I don't believe that, I believe our kids are actually in a unique position where unemployment is going to be something that they perhaps are not going to experience, because the population is going to be decreasing so rapidly, and unless we do a lot of immigration, in around about 10, 15 years time, the working population.
That's an interesting take. Yeah. And it does make total sense, because it aligns with I hadn't thought about it that way. I just been thinking about it more from a business and ownership perspective of, clearly there's a bunch of assets in the form of business and maybe even property that are not going to have natural successors.
Correct. Yeah.
And yeah, I guess from a workplace perspective as well, I mean, for every business owner, there's probably 10 people in that same demographic that are career workers, right?
Yeah. And you need career workers. I mean, you're so of there's certain professions like teaching and things like that, where you need people to be coming in and working in that profession forever. But there's other things, other industries where you actually want to have a bit of a throughput of people, right? Like sales. Yeah, for example, sales. You
Momentum-driven roles.
Yeah, where you want people to become and work hard, and they could be that they stay there for a long period of time, but it could be also that, okay, after about 4 years or what have you, there'll be some people that you actually go, well, we won't be able to grow that person here. They will have to move on to if they want to grow. And that's where you start thinking, you work on.
And I guess you know that from the test.
Yeah, so you'll be certain roles that you'll look at, and there'll be certain people that go into those roles, and you just know that person's probably going to be there for 2 years. Yep, tops.
Right.
So someone who's highly assertive, someone who's highly proactive, likes innovation, likes change, likes variety. After a period of time working on the same job, or once they know everything, unless they're like in a situation where they're constantly hitting goals or striving to bigger goals, those, as long as it's going well, they'll stay. You might get 3 years out of them,
but as soon as it loses momentum, that kind of profile will probably move on.
Precisely. And then you'll find that those sorts of people as well, they need that we'll call it that, either constant stimulation, or they need a stimulation of another big goal or anything like that. So it could be another challenge at work. So it could be moving from one type of sales into another,
right,
or leading up a new, or going on to say a new division or whatever it is, to keep that person going.
Yeah, cool. So what, I'm assuming as well, companies often don't get this right. So, and there's an individual kind of joining an organization and taking on a role. You don't really want to get it wrong, because you don't want to waste your time. That time is a finite resource that we don't get to earn back. How can a person kind of, and it's not just about jobs, right? It's about, if you're founding an organization and you're working with someone for the first time, you're building a business with them, you also don't want to make that mistake also. So how do we be true to thine own self?
Understanding who you are can be very, very powerful, and sharing that understanding with other people. So, for example, if you are the sort of person who doesn't like a whole heap of detail, right, then it's every one of those things you might want to share that with your co-founder. And then work out, okay, well, you're probably better than this than me, or both of us are no good at this. We actually need to get someone else in, otherwise we're going to drop this.
Totally.
And so understanding that can be very useful. It's also a case of, once you know what your strengths are, you can kind of hack them a wee bit. So you could, I worked with a chief executive of a engineering firm, highly detail orientated, highly process orientated, very introverted. So when I asked him how did he do networking events, because that's where he goes to grow his business, he said, I hate them. I want to stay at home and watch television instead. And so I said, well, what do you do when you go to these events? And he said, well, I find the people I know and talk to them.
Yeah.
I said, well, you're probably better off spending your time watching TV. Right. So I said, well, here's a couple of tricks. I said, this is a guy who's naturally a problem solver.
Yeah.
I said, next time you go to an event and you're talking to people you know, ask them the question, who else do you know here tonight? And they'll go, oh, I know Charlie over there from XYZ Contracting. Great. Can you introduce me? He's already getting a warm introduction.
Yeah.
So he gets introduced to Charlie. Hey, Charlie, how you doing? Yeah, great. What sort of projects are you working on at the moment? Oh, we're working on the Sky City Convention Centre.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you must have a few challenges and problems on that job. And they'll go, yeah, tell me about it. Oh, what are they? Bang. Suddenly he's talking about into that problem solving discussion area.
Right.
And when we went through that strategy with this guy, as soon as we went there, his eyes just lit up and he goes, oh, I can do that.
Nice.
So I haven't put him through any training.
Yeah.
I haven't sent him on a course to be a better networker or anything like that.
Yeah.
All I've done is worked out what are some of your strengths. Let's use some of those too.
Yeah. And framing it in a way where he felt comfortable.
So you can actually work on some of the areas perhaps that you're not so great at. Yeah. And so leveraging that can be incredibly powerful.
Yeah, totally. Oh, so you asked as a part of us doing the podcast, you sent through an email saying, hey, do the thing.
Yeah.
So I did the thing. And then we had a brief discussion about it, but do you want to kind of, do you want to go through it with me?
Okay, that's cool. So sent through that link, you did the assessment, and it took you about
5 minutes.
5 minutes of that. And so from that brief assessment, we're able to gather a whole heap of information. So first up, you're the sort of guy who's quite happy with a level of risk. You like new opportunities, you like new things, driving things forward and making things happen.
Right.
So got a level of confidence and like, I guess you can call it individual expression. You like, well, we talked about the entrepreneur's journey a bit earlier on. Totally. That you're an entrepreneur at heart.
Right.
Yeah. Quite task orientated, so quite a critical, creative thinker. Give you a problem, you'll take it away, work on it and solve it. And quite a strong and inquiring mind. So it's not enough to just know, yeah, this is how it is. You'll go, why? Right. Why are we doing that? Yeah, we need to change this. Or why are we just changing that? So you go to the crux of the problem, and find out more about things. You don't need to have a whole heap of rules, processes and procedures. Don't like to have a whole lot of formality. That actually slows you down, and it will drain your battery. So you'll, as I mentioned, you go to the crux of the problem. You'll kind of cut through stuff to find the answer, find out what's really important, what are the key facts, get to that. And then it's a case of driving things forward and making a decision and driving things forward from there. Quite stable in terms of, what you've got. You'll have once you make a decision, you want to get on and get it done. You take a little bit of time to connect to new people. So when you'll meet someone for the first time, it's not just a case of, oh, here's Andy. He's joining the team today. You want to find out, what is it you can do? What is it that you bring to the party? How can I use you in our organization? You want to go into a bit more depth and you meet people. You're not just going to throw a project at me and trust me to do it. You'll want to know, definitely, find out a lot more about my skills and things like that. Quite proactive in your profile as well. So you've got that level of assurity in terms of assertiveness, self-confidence, driving things forward, making things happen. You have happy to do change and go through things, but you also you've got a bit of level of stability in your profile. So change has to be methodical. There has to be a purpose behind it. There has to be some logic behind what we're actually doing.
Right.
So you don't need much of a plan, but you want to have a plan. And you've got that level of informality there as well. So, reasonably warm and friendly with other people in the workplace. You'll be quite imaginative. You're a problem solver, so you like to take things away and work things out and stuff like that. So sometimes that means that you might go away, come up with a decision or come up with a solution to a problem, and then bring it back and go, hey guys, here's our solution. This is what we need to do.
Yeah.
And everyone is quite surprised, or everyone goes, really? Is that what should we do? And you might get some pushback on that. And that's because naturally you don't necessarily will socialize your thought processes. You'll partly. And then you kind of have to then sell your idea to people. And if you can't sell it, you'll push it.
Right.
So sometimes if you think you're on the right track on something, just grabbing a few stakeholders or whatever you can say, I'm thinking we should do this, or this could be the course of action we need to take, or what do you think of this idea? Just to socialize it, to kind of put that seed of thought in their mind.
Totally.
So that when you come to the natural outcome, which might be a few hours later or a day later, whatever it is, they're already their minds wrapped, everything's correct. So they go, okay, that's great. You've actually done some work on this. This is cool. And then it becomes less of a sell and less of a push. It just naturally flows. So giving you a level of independence, control over your activities, you no way are you going to be micromanaged.
Yeah.
You need a bit of flexibility there. Downside of that is sometimes people can be too flexible. And so you'll take a course of action, something will come up and you veer that way very quickly.
Yeah.
So that can be good, but it can also be bad, because you might end up, if you've got people working for you, they charge off in one direction and then they have to come back very quickly, whatever it is.
Right.
Or you split their
pivot or defocus.
Yeah. So sometimes it could be just a case of how do I prioritize my changes? Yeah, right. Do I go, that's important, but I have to park it because I can't pull Bill and Jane and Sally off those particular projects.
Totally.
Yeah. Freedom of expression, freedom of opportunity to delegate opportunities to other people or delegate work to other people, if you can. Just because details, they don't even have to be too taxing or whatever, but they will drain battery faster. So again, finding out those parts of the day where you're more productive, and going, okay, that's kind of would be where I deal with it there, and realizing that you can't do that for all day. So okay, give myself permission to not do
Sprints.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to do it as a sprint. I'm going to do my detail from 8 till 10, and then the rest of the days meeting people or going to meetings or whatever it is. As mentioned, you don't mind change or things like that. That's okay, but having a bit of a plan's helpful. And then you'll put some consistency in your day in terms of routine and things like that, but your reason for routine is different to other people. Your reason for routine is efficiency. So you do things not because you're a creature of habit, it's because you're a creature of time. So you know that a particular way of doing something is the most efficient way of doing something, so that's why you do it like that.
Right.
But if I can show you a faster way to do it, you'll change quickly.
Definitely.
So it's not a case of that's the way we always do it. But so you're kind of, I guess, call them some of the lightning points. If I want to make you change something or do something differently, I can show you it's more efficient.
Right.
And then boom, you're into it.
Totally.
Yeah. So that's a very brief synopsis.
Yeah, sweet. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Lots make sense and are consistent with the challenges that we face and the opportunities that we also have. For sure. I love to go and solve a problem on my own. I think and I like working with other people too and going through that, but big critical things where I need to think I need to be in the right surroundings. Then I don't like lots of meetings. I don't like a lot of schedule. I don't like when my kind of day is full of just booked out stuff. I would much rather it be a little less.
You need a variety in your day.
Need a variety, and like you say, I like to have those 1 or 2 blocks in the day where I do get to do some thinking and solving problems, for sure. And then happy to do socializing and do meetings as required. However, I would say I'm an introvert by nature. I'm definitely an introvert, unless I choose, right? And then I'm a bit more social when I decide that, so I fancy it at that moment, I guess. So yeah, it's quite consistent, and definitely kind of probably a lot of people in my team would agree with the assessment. They'll definitely see it in this podcast. So yeah, no, it was fun. So yeah, and I think there is so much you can do by really like sticking, at least knowing yourself and working from there. I think knowing is half the battle.
Yeah.
Like sharing problems. If you share a problem, it's halved.
Yeah.
And I think if you know yourself and you understand yourself, and that allows you to then double down on what's really great and also where your weaknesses are. Because I know that my weaknesses will be perhaps I go and solve a problem independently or change a direction because it's the right thing and the more efficient thing to do. But have I communicated efficiently and effectively with the people that in my team may need consistency and clear communication and feel like they understand where they're going?
Yeah.
But it's obvious, because the first principle thinking takes us there.
Yeah.
But that isn't the right way to maybe communicate, because how you communicate also makes a big difference to people.
Yeah, precisely. And you'll have people in your team who are exactly what you need in terms of the things that you aren't. Yeah. Which are highly detailed, process-orientated individuals who need a plan and need a pathway to get things done. But if you change that pathway on them, they are going to be frazzled and freak out and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So just dropping things in with them can be quite useful, or providing an agenda for the meeting. All these sorts of things can be quite useful because it actually gets their brain thinking about things.
Yeah.
So that when you do come to
decision time.
I've been thinking about this problem or whatever it is, they perhaps are primed.
Yeah.
So that they can actually make a contribution of that, and say actually, and then also soliciting from them, say, well, this is where I think we should be going, and these are the reasons why. But you guys are over the detail better than I am.
Yeah.
I need your input.
Yeah.
And so sometimes not being perhaps too precious about the outcome.
Yeah.
Because it could be, it could be that you keep 95% of your decision, but you've just tweaked it.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Andy, for coming on the pod. I've enjoyed it. And I look forward to continuing this discussion.
Cool.
Awesome. Thanks, mate.
All right.